Yeah, I wish we would. I wish, bands don't seem as popular anymore in the mainstream music. It just seems like it's singers that,
Mm-hmm.
when it doesn't really matter who the band is or what the music behind it is, the singer that's got all the attention at this point for contemporary music. So I'd like to see, those bands come back together and be able to create that magic in the studio when they 4 guys, 5 guys get together, start jamming, start playing, and come up with this great music.
Listen to the Vibes.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Listen to the Vibes. I must say I'm very honored and very privileged to have Mr. Brian Tarquin here. He is an awesome musician. We're going to talk a little bit about his album. He's coming out next month, right?
Yeah, next week, actually, on the 3rd.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I've been in the record industry for, oh God, since the late 80s. I started in being an engineer and composing and in studios around New York City. I was born and raised in New York City, and so I got I'm a diehard guitarist. I've been doing it for God, since I was a kid. So it's I kind of have a passion for that, and I put it with a passion of like trying to help the veterans as well on this new album, Brothers in Arms.
And you've had other albums dedicated to the veterans as well, right?
Yeah, I have. I've had a couple others, Guitars for Wounded Warriors back in 2014, and then another one, Guitars for Veterans. So I, try to recruit as many new guitarists as I can and bring them in the fold.
And man, you've worked with quite the lineup. I guess on their projects, on your projects as well. And we were talking ahead of time. I've had a couple of them on the show, and I tell you what, I listened to a lot of instrumental albums, and some of them just seem like they run into each other, almost like they all sound the same. But each song in this album is very distinct. And I know you have, like Bumblefoot was on there, and Vinnie Moore, several others. And did you write these songs with them in mind, or they just added their flavor to what you wrote?
Yeah, when I started out the project, what I did was I had each artist in mind, and so I would kind of like write and cater the song and the composition to their kind of style and what they would do. So it was great the way it turned out. And because I like to collaborate in that way, because I write the melodies and do all of that, and I play it, and then I leave them a few spots to be able to interchange, do a solo, and so forth.
Man, how many effects did you use on that album?
You mean guitar pedals effects?
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
no, I see. I used a Univibe, a Dunlop Univibe. I used what else did I use? I used like the whammy pedal and a wah pedal. That's probably most of the stuff I use. I usually get everything out of the amps, the sounds and stuff.
Yeah. What's usually your inspiration?
It probably the thing that I'm writing about. So with this particular thing, was the inspiration was, veterans and through the ages, trying to capture what, feel, whether it be angry, sad, happy, and try to evoke that through the music.
Yeah. I talked to a few veterans before I started having them on the show, and hearing their stories really touched me, and all the red tape they have to go through. It's sad that we ask these guys to go out and put their lives on the line for us, and they get so much I don't know how to describe it. It's just too much trouble to try to get the help that they really need. And a lot of it is not only physical, but the mental problems as well. And I hate seeing them stuck on the streets and addicted to drugs and alcohol. And how did you get so passionate about helping veterans?
When I was growing up as a kid in this, I grew up in New York City, so I saw a lot of veterans from the Vietnam War on the street, and the same kind of thing you're saying, homeless, sleeping on subways. And I thought, my God, there's no outreach program that can help these people. Help. I mean, they're veterans. They fought in a war. I mean, they're out panhandling in the 70s. It was kind of very sad, kind of, commentary on the society. So I felt like, I wanted to do something good towards that. I also did a short stint in the ROTC when I was in college. So, so I was in that, and I saw them, and, and talked to everybody. And, it's just something that's so unappreciated in our society, I think.
Yeah, that you hear so many people say, "Oh, we need to do something about it," and you're actually doing something about it.
Yeah, way that I do it through music and try to get people to, be more aware of it through that angle, because with music it kind of reaches everybody, and somehow maybe that can enlighten people of what's going on around us with the veterans.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of in passing with a lot of folks. They might hear a story on the news and it's on their mind for a couple of days, but some of us are living it every day trying to help. I mean, I've never been in the military, but a lot of my family were, and so yeah, that touches me.
Yeah, and it's the problem is that we are so inundated with all this information from television and online that we can't comprehend it. It's like one subject and out the ear, and another subject and another thing, and it's just kind of like no attention span I think the public has for all of this. So it's maybe a different way of trying to get attention.
Yeah. And I want to go back to the album again. If I read correctly, you played just about every instrument on there, didn't you?
Yeah, except for drums, because I had my old time friend from way back. I've known him 30 years. He played drums, Reggie Pryor, and then I recorded all of those, and then and then I played bass and all the rhythm guitars, the melodies, and I would do like a trade solo thing with the guests.
Yeah, like I say, everyone is very distinctive. They don't blend together like so many other albums that I've heard.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong, great musicians out there, but sometimes it gets to sound like when did the last song end?
Yeah, right. That by composing it for each guest, so that way there is some difference, and it's a special thing, not just having one album run away, run 1-3. And it's not just even like rock or hard rock or any kind of music. I notice that some artists they get locked in, and then the whole thing sounds kind of a run on. So I like to have different flavors in there.
Yeah, you listen to one song and it sounds like you're playing with the Trans-Siberian Orchestra, and the next one sounds almost like you've gone back into the 80s and you're playing in one of those really heavy hard rock bands, or maybe I don't know. Well, you had a guy from Armored Saint on there, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, Jeff Duncan. Yeah.
There was a song that I was listening to, and I swear I was waiting for Jeff Tate to come out and sing.
Oh, really?
But you did have one that had some vocals on. I mean, not vocals, but you had some singing on it.
Yeah, it was like chanting. Yeah, along with the guitar line. Yeah, that was what was that one called? I remember that. Oh yeah, Saigon Sally. Yeah, that's right. And then we did. I had Gerald Gradwohl on there from Tangerine Dream. He did some solos on that.
Awesome, all the way around awesome. I don't know how else to describe it. I get a lot of musicians come on here. We have a mutual acquaintance who's Billy James, and he's not disappointed me once with the music that he sends me. Some of it is like Zappa-esque type stuff, you know.
Yeah, Billy's a great guy. He handles a lot of like what I think falls through the cracks today is today is the instrumental music, because instrumental music is kind of not as popular as it once was. So it's good to see that somebody still supports it.
Do you think that we're going to see in the next generation people still trying to make this kind of music?
I possibly. I think the next generation may look back and look at like the 80s and the 90s or even the 70s and say, hey man, we really like that kind of stuff. Let's play it our way, maybe put a twist on it, but still use live instruments and everything. Because today's, when you look at Spotify and you look at all of those, it's obviously contemporary music. So it's all, kind of computerized EDM music or rap or hip hop. And that's what pop is. And, so it seems like it goes in cycles,
And you recorded this on tape, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I record it on tape. Yeah. I love the way tape sounds at, for drums and bass and rhythm guitars and things. Just it warms everything up. You kind of like, you have that little bit of tape distortion that helps the sound. It's kind of like the records we all grew up with were like done that way. So and I have a full recording studio, so I'm blessed to be able to do that.
Yeah. And I miss the days when a lot of the bands would play live in the studio, instead of one guy comes in one day and the next guy comes in the next day. I hope I want to see it go back to that.
Yeah, I wish we would. I wish, bands don't seem as popular anymore in the mainstream music. It just seems like it's singers that, when it doesn't really matter who the band is or what the music behind it, is the singer that's got all the attention at this point for contemporary music. So I'd like to see, those bands come back together and be able to create that magic in the studio when they 4 guys, 5 guys get together, start jamming, start playing, and come up with this great music.
And not too many bands can get a new lead singer and still be as popular. I mean, AC/DC did it, and a few others, but not too many.
Van Halen did it, which was an amazing feat. Actually, they became even more popular without David Lee Roth as far as sales went, mainstream. But not many people can replace a singer, because it's tough, and AC/DC, it's amazing that they were able to survive with that. And actually they became even bigger with Back in Black when he came out, and replaced Bon Scott. Because I always think, when I think of AC/DC, I think of Bon Scott, and that.
Yeah, that's I mean, when I first started listening to AC/DC, it was Bon Scott, and then all of a sudden, oh my God, he's gone. But out comes Back in Black, and lo and behold, man, that was monster.
Yeah, it was monster. And you know what? It didn't affect the band at all. And it really kind of was pretty close. It was a really close assimilation, and God, it was, same thing with Van Halen when he got Sammy Hagar. You thought, oh no, this is going to be, how's this going to work? But it was great, and it's just, I guess it's just picking the right singer with the chemistry with the band,
Yeah, I'm a huge Sammy Hagar fan, and I mean, I love the stuff he did with Van Halen, but I'm kind of a David Lee Roth guy myself.
Yeah, I love David Lee Roth. I love old Van Halen. There is nothing like those old Van Halen records. Those are amazingly great. It's funny, but I think when they went to the third singer, then it collapsed.
Yeah, it was the guy from
man.
Oh my God, I just had it on the tip of my tongue too.
Dream?
Yeah, Extreme.
Yeah, and that really took a nosedive. It didn't do well. You know, I mean, one album and that was it.
Man.
But you know, it's and then they went back to saying it's like it's a tough thing. You know, to have done it once, to be able to change to another singer is a miracle. But you know, the third one, that was really asking for, you know.
That was a disaster, to say the least.
And I'm a diehard Van Halen fan, and that's the only Van Halen album I never bought.
I couldn't stomach it, man, to be honest with you.
It's kind of, we just skipped over that, you know.
But I mean, there's some even lead singers that can go out and keep going, but that change of the band just kind of takes something away. I went and saw Vince Neil. He had he had Steve Stevens playing guitar for him, and you know, Steve Stevens is awesome.
Yeah, he's really great. Yeah. How was it? Did it work?
They had one decent song, but to be honest with you, I mean, I think everybody's expecting that Motley Crue sound, and it just didn't have it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It was lighter than hard rock stuff they did?
I mean, it was still hard rock, but it was, God, you know, Dr. Feelgood, when it came out.
Yeah.
There was a couple of songs on there that I really liked, but for the most part, I just felt it was way too poppy.
It was, yeah.
I mean, it was almost as if they had taken lessons from Poison or something, you know.
Yeah, they went very mainstream, you know, and they played at the time. I was living in LA, and man, they played the hell out of that record all the time. It was, you couldn't get away from it.
Yeah, that was one of those albums that almost sounded like all the songs blended together.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, we went and saw Queensryche, and the guy they got singing for him, at times you'd swear it was Jeff Tate on stage.
Yeah, he's Jeff. You know, I love Queensryche and Jeff Tate, and it's awesome. I saw him a couple of years ago. He came around, did the Rage for Order tour with his own band, and it's awesome. I mean, that old Queensryche stuff is just excellent. It's just awesome. I just thought the new songs don't, you know, it's hard because, you know, it's not Jeff, and the songs are not the same kind of songs that they once wrote, you know. So
but Jeff, I'm sorry, go ahead.
He does sound like Jeff. He could do the old stuff right like it, you know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And Jeff is coming to town, and we're planning on going to see him. I'm interested to see how that backing band's going to sound.
They're good. He's
Are
got
they?
two and a bass player, and I think he's got a synth guy, and then he's got the drummer, and it's actually really good. I saw him in a small club in New York. It was great. He actually did it. He did the whole Rage for Order album front to back.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
We went to go see Judas Priest, and I mean, those guys they're up there. I mean, Rob is in his late 70s.
Yeah, he's in his 70s. Yeah, he's somewhere in his 70s. He's great voice. Great. I mean, that they really kind of trailblazed the whole thing, you know, from the 70s.
I'm gonna tell you what, it was like he was still in his 20s the way he sang. He didn't miss a beat, didn't miss a note. I mean, the guy was perfect.
Yeah, he's got a great voice. Yeah, he's like one of the top metal singers, I think.
And you know, we saw the Who, Roger Daltrey, same thing. I mean, the guy's almost 80 years old and still sings like he's in his 20s.
Yeah, I caught them last year in Woodstock. It was great. They're really good. They still sound really good. You know, he doesn't. It's funny. I see Pete Townshend doesn't play a Les Paul anymore. He's just playing a Strat. Maybe it's just too heavy. I don't know. It's just...
Yeah, I noticed that. But he still swings.
Yeah, he does. He still does that windmill. Yeah.
But it's great because our generation still loved and appreciated a lot of that music from the 60s. And, you know, I grew up in the 70s, so I really, really love that stuff. And of course,
Yeah.
80s music came around and I loved it as well. But I mean, let's face it, we're getting up there. I mean, I'm not ready for the old folks home yet, but you know, getting up there, I get pretty sentimental at times. You know, I got grandkids, and
Oh
I
yes.
like to say, you know, oh, you know what your pawpaw did back in the day, that kind of thing. And I don't know. I hope it stays alive until I'm gone. But what do you think?
You know, I think it will. And, you know, I bet you maybe your grandkids will, you know, maybe really get into it, you know, by the time they're teenagers. You know, I don't know how your grandchildren are, but, you know, or in their 20s or the next generation after that, because I can't see, you know, hard rock, metal, guitar, all of that is always been the voice of revolution, the voice of discontent. So I can't see it going away. I mean, yes, it was replaced by another angry voice like hip hop and rap, but I think that they'll come back to it, you know. And I don't think, you know, I think that there are, you know, kids out there now like millennials and zoomers and stuff that probably do like rock, and they do like it. It's just not in the numbers of what we knew, you know, where most of us, you know, most of the generation liked it. It's like you know, less now. So it seems like it goes a little, you know, it seems like it's dying. But you know, I think you know, like the Who said, long live rock and roll, whether they're dead or alive. So it's I think there'll always be an audience for that. And of course, if you I don't know if this is like just peculiar to the US, but in other countries metal's bigger, you know, and they like it more, you know, Poland and Italy and other places like Eastern Europe and stuff, but and even Japan, I think. But here it's like, I guess we're kind of always the trendsetters, and so we're on a, you know, kind of this. I think the way I look at it is, you know, what was great about that music is the musicianship, whether you're a singer or a vocal, you know, doing vocals, doing keyboards, bass, drums, guitar. And I felt like, you know, you don't get that same thing with modern music because, you know, it is all in the box kind of, you know, computer. And I think that there's going to come a time where people are going to get sick of that and probably go back and look at, go, wow, you know, there was so much better, you know, or more valid musicianship, you know, with our music, you know, with the you know, rock and jazz, whatever it may be, you know.
Yeah, I had Jeff Berlin on the show, and we talked about that. How today it's so it's corporate. You know, everything's all on the computer. You just slap it all together and throw some vocals on it. Don't get me wrong, there's some great vocalists. Whether I like the music or not, I have to admit there's some great vocalists out there. But there's not that feeling that the music from our day had.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't have I don't it's like we were talking about before with the band, like a live feeling, but yet it's recorded, but you know the band played it together and you know they were live. You know? And that's missing with, you know, it comes, you know, kind of like sterile when you're just singing to, you know, loops and things of that nature. Plus, I also feel, you know, a lot of the vocals that I've heard in mainstream today's a little too processed, you know, for my liking, you know. But it's a different generation, and you know, the thing is that they're big on computers, so they have every plug-in and everything. That's why I wanted to record this, because I have a real mixing console and outboard gear and everything. So that's why I recorded it as much as I could on tape. You know, I did have to transfer it to Pro Tools and Logic, you know, to digital. But that's why I like to try to keep, you know, as much, you know, organically musical as possible, you know, just because, you know, I really want to go for those old records, you know, that we all grew up with, that we know from the 70s and 80s. And, you know, it's just, it was a different thing, you know, and that is missing in today's, you know, at least mainstream music. You know?
Yeah. Well, a lot of these artists that come out and sing, they don't see a musician. Everything's off a computer, and the only musicians they ever see is when they're on tour. And even most of that's, coming through speakers, not coming from an amp.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing. Yeah. They don't, because the producer at this point, by the time the vocalist comes in, the whole track is done. And the producer has been working on it, basically getting it to sound right. And then they just come in, sing it, and it's over. So it's not like, 4 or 5 guys in the studio kind of hammering it out and going, oh man, we got to do this, that, it's not like pushing and pulling with compromise and ideas and stuff. They're just, kind of almost just going in and almost like a studio gig, and just sing.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand, I guess this generation grew up with with the computer, and so they want to utilize it as much as they can. And, I get it. I understand that's why they want to do it. But, I think, maybe a little more playing, a little less computer might be good for the next, for the future.
Yeah, it's like when I go to the grocery store. You go in there and you don't even have a cashier anymore. You just go up to the computer and scan it and pay, and you go.
Yeah.
There's no human interaction there. And
no.
I'll tell you what, when I go to Walmart, I would rather spend an extra 10 minutes waiting in line just so I could talk to the guy behind the cash register.
Yeah. Yeah. It'd be good luck to find somebody in Walmart these days,
Yeah, no kidding, man. Well, you've been making music for several years, and you do so much. How do you, stay fresh and motivated?
Yeah, that's a good question. When I first got started after the engineering, I went to, I was composing too. And, I found back then people didn't really want to compose for television and film. It was kind of considered, like a second-rate thing. So I got into that because the field was pretty wide open. And what I liked about that was it was different with records, because in a record you could take your time, but on that you can you have to meet a deadline, and you have to actually get this correct and right and work quickly in the studio. So I found that with things like that, less time that you have to think about making a decision, you become better at making a decision on the fly and right away. And that's what I really liked about, doing that kind of work. It was good. So, I balance between that. I work, I do a lot of film and television, and then I do, the records with that, because I try to balance in between, the two. And because, one, you can really make an artistic statement with the records. And then, of course, you're just kind of scoring for the scene and what it needs to be done. And there's less kind of like delay in thinking about it.
Yeah. I was reading about how you've made scores for movies and TV shows. What's that like when you turn on one of those programs and you hear your music?
Yeah, it's always fun. It's always great. In the beginning, it was like awesome. It was like, oh my God, I can't believe they're playing, years ago, like 30 years ago, when I first started hearing all that. And I was like, wow, man, this is so cool, And it's funny because, when you do that kind of stuff, a lot of times you don't know where it's going to show up. So sometimes you see it in different usages in television or film or a trailer or something, and you're like, wow, I didn't, on some of this stuff I didn't picture that being there, but it actually works. It's very cool. Yeah, it's and that kind of keeps you fresh and moving and going. And then coming up with like the whole Brothers in Arms, the new album. It's refreshing because you have a cause that you're writing for these veterans, and then you're for the various artists and you're working with. So it's actually gives you, because I like to write an album with kind of like an overview of what it's going to be, almost thematic, and as opposed to just putting a bunch of songs together and releasing an album, because I find it more effective, just and more motivating for me, to be able to do the whole record.
So, like yourself, I talk to these veterans, and as I said before, it breaks my heart hearing some of these stories. When you talk to someone or you see someone on the street, you kind of get that inspiration going in your head right away for, oh, I could make a song, and this would be the feeling for it.
Yeah, sometimes, if you see something, you kind of like, it sticks in your mind, and then say you go back to the studio later on and you're like, wow, this feeling that I'm coming up with could work for this, the scene I just saw, and on the street or something that a poor veteran, and just try to get awareness, because like we said, the attention span is very low these days because we're hit so much with information from television and from the internet and our phone. So people could be moved when they see it for 3 minutes, and then they swipe, and the next thing you know, they're on to something else. So it's a challenge for people's attention today.
You worked with other people, and you're doing your own stuff, and I mean, just doing so much. There's got to be a time when you need to wind down. What do you do to kind of get away from it all?
I get on my motorcycle. That's what I love bikes. So I love to ride quads. I love quads. So, that's kind of like a real relaxing thing for me. It's like, motorsports and to just take a break from it all. Cause it's, there's nothing like kind of being on the open road and kind of driving around. It keeps your mind clear,
What would you say, makes you who you are? I mean, what kind of person are you, and what makes you that person?
I guess, it's a good question. Probably the best answer is I'm a pretty creative person. So I like creating, and that's probably what keeps me going, writing music and producing and doing all this, because I like to create. The fun is in the creation of it, and to hear it, and then as you're building it and seeing it come together and all of that. So I like that a lot. It's actually a very cool thing. I also love pottery, so so all the creative arts are cool with me. I just like to create, and that's probably the basis of who I am, and to share it with everyone.
Well, I mean, I know you got a lot of years ahead of you, but inevitably we all pass on. What do you want people to remember you for?
Well, that's a good question. I guess just being, a creative guitarist who really tried to get the word out there for veterans and to help people, and a real proponent of music and just keeping the faith.
I know you've probably done a lot of these interviews. What's the one thing that you never get asked that you'd like to talk about?
Probably guitar setups. Nobody really asks guitar.
All right, well, talk us through it.
I'm a guitar head, so I love to create all this stuff. So, I have like a bunch of amps, and I have like an amp switcher from the amp heads to different speaker cabinets. So I could switch between any cabinet I want. During recording process. So that makes it a lot easier while you're recording, not to be able, not to have to go plug wires in and out and everything, that you just have a switch and go, okay, I'm going to go from the Fender, a Prosonic head to the Marshall cabinet, or I want to go from the, orange cabinet to like, a Plexi head, or an SOB Mesa Boogie or something like that. So, that's pretty much. And then of course the guitars are like, I love Les Paul. I knew Les Paul, and I actually visited his house. I worked with a guy who, early on, like 30 years ago, a dear friend who's still a friend now, Jeff Gray. He lives in Boulder, Colorado, and he has a studio far and away, but he used to have it in New York. And that's where I started working as an assistant engineer. So one day he took me down to Les Paul's house and in New Jersey, New Jersey. And man, I got to tell you, that was a pretty amazing event because, you know, when you walked into his house, he just had, it was like the Gibson factory blew up. And it was just, you know, guitar parts and bodies of Les Pauls and necks and tuners and everything. He was a tinkerer and an inventor. So he's always working on stuff. And so, and then he had all these amazing recording gear. And of course, you know, all these old, Ampex tape machines, you know, from the 50s. And he was actually building a studio at the time, this was years ago, that he had the control room in his house looking down at the live room, had a big glass and looked down. It was really cool. And he had a really old desk, tube desk there. And it was an amazing, amazing thing. And this is the time when he was, before he became very popular, you know, and he was playing a place called Fat Tuesdays down in the Village. You know, later he became really popular and like came popular again, and he's playing the Iridium, and so there was always a line and stuff. But this is before all that, so you could really talk to Les and really see what he was doing back in the 50s, 60s. He would tell you, you know, how he was making these pickups. He would like make these guitar pickups in his kitchen and like, you know, and wax them and the whole thing. It's and you know, the guy's like the father of the electric guitar, so it's pretty amazing. So I have a host of Les Pauls, you know, custom shop ones, and deluxes, which have the mini humbuckers in it, which I kind of really like. You know, I have a 77 Gold Top Les Paul Deluxe, and that's one of my favorites. And then I have a Les Paul Gibson Les Paul Alpine White custom shop. That's really nice. And I've been endorsed by Seymour Duncan for a long time, and so I usually put Duncans in them. You know, it's but on this album I used a little of everything. I used Ovation 12 string, a Guild 6 string for like the middle breakdowns of like because on one of the tracks I had the Budapest Orchestra do a live recording on it for the strings, and that was Hounds of Hell, which is featuring this, I don't know if you know this guy, but you should get him for your show, Johannes Weik. He is a German guitarist, but he's really good, and he's in this band called Son of a Bach. And they dress up like the old Beethoven days, and he plays this hard rock stuff. It's actually really cool. You'd really dig him. He's actually really good. So I had him come and do it. Nobody knows who he is, but I really wanted him because I really like his playing. And you know, so the acoustic guitars I used a couple different Strats. I used because I have a Fender Jeff Beck signature one. Speaking, yeah, which is speaking. He just passed away, and you know he was a big influence of mine, and so I had used that, another Strat. I have had a Midtown semi-hollow body, this 335s. So for this album, I just like kind of took everything out, and it was like all of that. And basses, I did a Rickenbacker.
I was fixing to ask you about the Ricks.
Yeah, I had to use the Rick bass on that side. And I have the it's before Billy Sheehan had his signature. It's like the late 80s, but it was called the Yamaha Attitude, the same thing. And I have one of those early ones. Wow. That too, as that everything on there. So it was, you know, I really took everything out of there. I even have a 5-string Ibanez bass that I use too. Wow. Some of the stuff. So I tried to, you know, and this was kind of done, you know, it started before the pandemic, a little before the pandemic, and then went through the pandemic while I was recording all this. So, so you know, I had a lot of time to really get everything correct and get the songs to everybody. And of course, everybody's was on lockdown, so we were switching files through the internet. So
that was a plus.
Yeah, it was a plus. Yeah, it was a cool process, you know.
Man, do you know Jeff Berlin?
Yes, I do know Jeff. Jeff's a great guy.
Man, I was listening to one of his albums and I was like, man, what fretless did you use? And he goes, I didn't use a fretless. I said, how did you make that sound? And he showed me. I was like, that's crazy. How do you make that sound like a fretless bass, man?
Yeah, he was amazing. Yeah, he's absolutely amazing. He knew Jocko too, which was really cool because Jocko is one of my favorite bass players ever from Weather Report and Jocko Pastorius. And he actually said that I think he uses the same basses he always has. You know, I don't think he changes up basses too much, Jeff. So and you know, I know his stuff from Alan Holdsworth and all of that, you know, so it's yeah, he's amazing, Jeff.
Have you ever bumped into someone and didn't know who they were and then found out later that they were somebody famous?
Yeah, I did that when I was in LA. They weren't a rock star, they were a movie star. I think I bumped into Mickey Rourke, but he looked so different at the time that I didn't notice that it was Mickey Rourke.
Is that after his facelift?
Yeah. Whatever he did, yeah, you know, because he was into boxing too, so I didn't that. It was crazy. And then another one was Sharon Doherty. I remember back in the day when she was on 90210.
Oh my God. I'm going to tell you a quick story. My cousin Carl, he had a band back in the late 80s called the Allisons, and they just put out an album. They were on Spindletop Records, and they, you know, they're like a division of Warner Brothers, and they're really pushing the album and whatnot. He was fixing to go on tour, I think, with the Outfield, and so that there was a club in Houston that they were doing the album release party. They would play a little bit over the speakers, and then they would get up and play a few songs live. Anyway, behind this place, it's called Fitzgerald's. There's like a little apartment, and that's where everybody goes to hang out and party and whatnot, you know, musicians and everyone. So of course I got to go back there. Now, mind you, I was a little underage to be drinking, but I was back there drinking and partying. My other cousin was there with me, and we're hanging out. And anyway, I did know a few of the people there that were kind of upper management at Warner Brothers and whatnot. But anyway, these real weird looking guys come in, and they were just cool. So we hung out with them, and we were talking and having a good time, and you know, exchanging stories, and said goodbye and went our separate ways. The next day, I found out that we were partying with Depeche Mode.
Oh, really?
I didn't listen to them, so I didn't know who they were.
Yeah, right. That's great.
Now, I did bump into a guy at a con, and when I looked up, it was Meatloaf. And I was
you know
like,
what
the hell?
That was another guy I bumped into. Where was I? Oh, I went to in 2010. Jeff Beck played the Iridium. I think it was a tribute to Les after he died, and you know, guys were there. Everybody was there. It was like a who's who. You know, Ace Frehley, all these guys. And later on, you know, it was this big fat guy I bumped into, and I was like, "Who the?" Was that? You know, I didn't know at the time. And then later on, I said, "God, that was Meatloaf, wasn't it?" You know?
Oh my! And he's really a nice guy. You know,
Yeah.
he actually bumped into me, and I was turning around about to say something, and then I looked, and I'm like, oh my God, it's Meatloaf. And I guess he didn't want to make a big deal out of it. He was trying to get to his booth or whatever, and I think he wanted me to kind of keep it on the hush hush, but that's after he'd lost all that weight. So,
yeah, he lost a lot of weight. Yeah.
yeah, poor guy, man. He wasn't looking too good, and I really liked him.
Yeah, he recently passed away, right?
Yeah, he passed away too. Man, we're losing a lot of good ones left and
We
right.
are. It's just seems like every month, there's somebody, because they're all up there, and I was like, God, well, who's next? Because it's like Jimmy Page is 79, Eric Clapton is like 79, or 80, I think at this point. I don't know. They're all really up there. So it's amazing. It's amazing. I never thought Jeff Beck would pass away, first, because he always seemed to be more of the healthy one through the years than the others, but you never know.
Well, I think Keith Richards has been dead for decades. It's just the drugs are keeping him going. So
Yeah, I got to tell you, he was one of the first I thought would. Back in the 80s, it was, I thought for sure him and Jimmy Page, it was like they were such heavy users that I thought, oh, there's no way. But Jimmy Page came up through. He came actually through better than Keith Richards. He looks great, Jimmy Page. He's healthy. It's just on the ball. He's always been another big hero of mine, Jimmy Page.
yeah, oh yeah. Well, when we were growing up, the only stories we ever heard about these guys were their drunken debacles or being drugged out. And I think it would have been very helpful back in the 80s when I started really drinking and doing drugs to have heard the stories of those guys who didn't party.
Yeah, that's actually probably true, because they glorified partying in those,
Yeah, we thought we had to grow our hair out and drink and do drugs. And I interviewed JJ French, and oh yeah, really cool guy too. I was surprised to find out that him and Dee, they didn't party. And
they did.
Nope. And I said, man, why didn't y'all tell people that? And he says, our management told us that we couldn't say that we didn't party because it would ruin the image.
Yeah, they wanted that party image.
Like, dude, you probably could have saved me from being an alcoholic and a drug addict.
Amongst a lot of other people, right? It's true.
Man, my habits got so bad that when I turned 36, I had a heart attack.
Oh wow, really? Oh,
Yep.
sorry. That's
I
that's when
mean,
yeah.
exactly. I started on a fifth of whiskey on Saturday, and Sunday it was gone. And I'd drink a case of beer along with it.
Yeah, that's like the Guns N' Roses backstage for one.
And I'm not saying that to brag. I'm saying that to say, look how stupid I was. Look what it led to. I almost lost my family over it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So I think it's just important to tell these guys who didn't party and not glorify it.
Yeah, yeah. In those days, it was like that was like part of the PR. That's all they talked about.
Mm-hmm.
The debauchery.
So if people wanted to get your album, how would they go about doing so on February the 3rd, right?
February the 3rd, it drops, and then we have actual CDs that'll be available like through Amazon and those outlets, and then there is, of course, iTunes, Spotify, and all of the other digital providers that's out there. So it's pretty easy to find.
I won't share, but I have it on Dropbox. Ha ha ha.
Glad you like it. That's great.
So is there a way for people to help the veterans, or you have an organization that people can give money to?
The Fisher House Foundation. There is a link, and let me see. I can bring up the link, or I don't know if I could send you the link.
I actually do have the link, and I will share that.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a link right to the album, right on the House Foundation,
Yeah.
and that'll go straight there, and you can donate.
Any and all links, I will share those in the description because I want to make it easy for people to find it.
Right. Yeah.
And are you on social media?
Yeah, you can find me on Facebook, Instagram. We have a YouTube channel, so I think you have all those links in the press release.
I believe they are in the press release.
Yeah, so maybe if you could share those, that'd be great.
Yeah, I will definitely do that. But Brian, man, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show and yakking with me today.
Sure, man. I really appreciate it, and it's great because I love all styles of music. I originally first got started with contemporary jazz, and I had a lot of hits. And then, I got enough of that, I kind of moved to what I always really wanted to do was, things like the Jeff Beck Wired albums and the instrumental, Satriani was another hero. It was a real privilege to work with Joe, though. I have to tell you, that really made my day to work with him on a track. So, because he was a hero of mine from the surfing with the Alien days.
Oh yeah, well, he's definitely on the top of my list.
Yeah,
I have to say, Zappa is number one for me.
Oh, you like? Yeah, Zappa's great. I love Zappa. Yeah,
the dude, he was just a genius, and
right. It was fun the Steve Vai days there when he was there. And then even before that, like Apostrophe and just all those records were just they were so good.
Yeah, Stevie needs a spanking.
Yeah, right. You are what you is. Love that one. Yeah,
that was what, Them or Us.
Yeah, Them or Us is after that, and then I think You Are What You Is was first, and then Them or Us, and then he had so many great. I mean, it was when you look back on those albums, it's like Joe's Garage,
Man from Utopia.
Yeah, it's just it's just he had such, and then when he had Adrian Belew in there, which was Chic Your Booty, that was that's another great record.
Weasels Rip My Flesh.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
200 Motels. Oh man, it would take you a long time to name all the Zappa albums because the dude had a list. Good Lord.
He had amazing catalog. He really had an amazing catalog.
He's the only one I know that could put out 5 albums in a year and it'd still sound totally different from the last one.
Yeah, that was what's great about, you were talking about earlier about albums becoming the same. That was great about Zappa, is because not all his albums came out so frequently, but yet they sounded different. It went to each one. It wasn't like, volume 2 of the one before. And, I think that's an important thing when you're an artist, to try to keep it so you're not getting the same thing over and over again to your fans.
Right. And the guy could blend doo-wop and reggae. The guy was a genius.
Yeah, it's true.
I'm still moving to Montana and raise some lonely dental floss.
Yeah, it's great. And he had the greatest musicians.
Oh man.
I mean, he just had so many amazing guys. It was just incredible how many guys he had,
Yeah, I'm still hoping that Billy can help me get a few of those musicians on the show because I'm the biggest Zappa nut.
Oh yeah. I'm sure he can because he worked with a lot of them.
Oh yeah. He wrote a biography about the Mothers of Invention.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, ask him about it when you talk to him.
Billy?
Mm-hmm. That's how I got to meet him. He was on a documentary about Zappa, and I looked him up on, I love Google. I Googled his name, found out that he had that PR firm, and I messaged him and asked him if he'd come on the show. And he said, well, I don't have the equipment right now. I will, but would you be interested in interviewing a few of the artists that I represent? Of course, I'm expecting people that no one's ever heard of.
Right.
And one of the first interviews I ever did was with Kevin Godley, and I about flipped out, man.
Wow. Yeah, that's cool.
I mean,
Yeah,
come on, 10cc?
yeah.
Jeez, man.
He's got a lot of guys. He kind of like really specializes in instrumental music. So it's Billy. So it's really good.
Yeah, I'm trying to talk him in to get Rick Wakeman on. So that would be awesome.
Rick Wakeman, that's I love Yes. Those days of Yes were just so good. Fragile and
Oh man.
Yours is
And
no, all that stuff. Yeah, it's just
do you know Jeff Cotton?
yeah, I think so.
Yeah, he's the original guitar player from Captain Beefheart.
Oh yes, okay, that's why I know him. Yeah.
Yeah, I got to talk to him. Great guy, man. We actually still communicate. So yeah, he's freaking awesome.
I mean, I haven't heard of Captain Beefheart in like a million years. Well, it's been a long time.
Hey man, we should try to promote more stuff like that. And surprisingly, there are a few artists that Billy represents that have that kind of, mothers of invention or magic band kind of sound.
Yeah, it's true. That's another thing that's kind of left the building too, is that type of music, that progressive, quirky kind of rock, like Zappa used to do.
That's one guy I wish he was still alive.
Yeah, it's sad how he died. Yeah.
The last image I have of him was when he was in Congress with Dee Snider and John Denver.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, that was great.
That was freaking awesome.
They brought him on, and he was like on some shows to, I guess, to kind of debate the whole thing about that. And there was like congressmen, and it's just great to see Zappa there with these guys that were like, real like straight laced.
I think what freaked him out in Congress was how intelligent those guys were.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they probably expected it from John Denver, but to hear the eloquence that came out of Dee Snider and Frank Zappa, I know that blew them away.
Oh yeah, they thought they were going to get like, kind of partying dude guys, you know what I mean? but they got really intelligent guys there.
Well, let's keep advocating for it. Let's keep this stuff going.
Absolutely. And make sure have everybody help those veterans. That's an important thing.
Yeah, I may put the link to that deal I was telling you about that's going on here in Texas with the veterans. So I'm gonna put that link in there as well, but I'm gonna send it to you.
Yeah, send it to me. That's good. You have my email?
No, but I'd be glad to get it from you after
sure.
the show's over.
Yeah, absolutely.
But thank you again for being on this show. It really truly has been an honor.
Oh, it's my privilege. Thank you so much.
And I also want to thank all you folks out there. If you are new to the channel, please not only come back, but hit that subscribe button and, like this video, share it out. My regulars, thank you all for being there because you make it possible for me to do this. So until the next one, everyone, please take care. Be kind to one another. God bless and peace.